May 1945. A freight train crawls through the darkness of occupied northern China, carrying hundreds of half-starved men toward the Japanese home islands and almost certain death. Inside a sealed boxcar, the air is thick with the smell of dysentery and despair. The men are skeletons wrapped in rags. Some have been prisoners for over 3 years. Many have stopped believing in rescue. A few have stopped believing in anything at all. But one man is not sleeping. First Lieutenant John F. Kinney, United States Marine Corps, fighter pilot, engineering officer, current prisoner of the Empire of Japan, lies on the filthy wooden floor with his eyes wide open, counting the seconds between guard patrols. He is memorizing the pattern of the train's movement, the rhythm of the brakes, the curve of the track ahead. He has been tortured. He has watched men die beside him. He has eaten rice crawling with maggots and called it dinner. He has survived Wusung. He has survived Kiangwon. He has survived 3 years and 5 months of systematic brutality that every man on that train would later be unable to fully describe in polite company. Now, he is about to do something that military intelligence officers would later call statistically impossible. Of the tens of thousands of Americans held in Japanese captivity across the Pacific, fewer than a dozen successfully escaped and returned to Allied lines. The Japanese did not merely guard their prisoners. They constructed an entire system, geographic, social, psychological, designed to make escape inconceivable. What Lieutenant Kinney didn't know, what no one on that train could have known, was that his escape would not be the end of his story. It would be the beginning. To understand what Kinney was up against, you have to understand Wake Island. Wake is a coral atoll in the central Pacific, 3 connected slivers of land totaling barely 3 square miles, sitting 2,000 miles west of Pearl Harbor and 1,400 miles south of Tokyo. Before December 1941, it was famous for exactly nothing. It had a partially constructed airstrip, a Pan American Airways facility for refueling seaplanes, and over 1,000 civilian construction workers trying to finish the job before the weather turned. The entire military garrison numbered fewer than 500 Marines and Navy personnel. They had 12 Grumman F-4F Wildcat fighters, a handful of coastal artillery pieces, and no radar. Against them, the Japanese Empire was about to throw everything it had. On December 8, 1941, just hours after the attack on Pearl Harbor, though Wake Island lies on the far side of the international dateline, 36 Japanese medium bombers arrive out of a cloud bank at low altitude. They destroy 7 of the 12 Wildcats on the ground before a single American pilot can get airborne. They kill 23 men in 4 minutes. By all military doctrine, Wake Island should have surrendered within 48 hours. It does not. What follows is one of the most improbable defensive actions in American military history. With only 4 flyable aircraft remaining, the surviving pilots fight on. Day after day, the Japanese return with more planes, more ships, more men. Day after day, the Marines meet them. On December 11, Captain Henry T. Elrod, soon to be posthumously awarded the Medal of Honor, becomes one of the first pilots in history to sink a warship with bombs delivered from a fighter aircraft. A single 100-pound bomb strikes the Japanese destroyer Kisaragi's depth-charge storage. The explosion tears the ship apart. All 167 crew members are lost. Meanwhile, coastal artillery tears into the destroyer Hayate, sending her to the bottom in under 2 minutes. At a cost that staggers the imagination, Wake's defenders repulse the first Japanese amphibious assault entirely. The news hits a nation still reeling from Pearl Harbor like a thunderbolt. But the Japanese are not finished. On December 23, they return with the full weight of their carrier fleet carriers, cruisers, destroyers, and well over 1,000 infantry. This time, there are no more planes to launch. There are no more miracles available. After 15 days of resistance that shocks both sides, Wake Island falls. First Lieutenant John F. Kinney is marched into captivity. What no one understands yet, not the Japanese, not American military planners, not even Kinney himself, is that the most dangerous thing about this particular prisoner is not what he has already done. It is what he is quietly, patiently, methodically planning to do next. John Franklin Kinney is not, by any conventional measure, a hero in the mold of Hollywood. He is from Agra, Kansas. He is the son of a schoolteacher. He is not large, or particularly imposing, or blessed with the kind of square jaw that wartime propaganda posters prefer. When he arrives at Wake Island in early December 1941, his official role is Squadron Engineering Officer, which is a polite way of saying he is the man responsible for keeping the planes running, not flying combat missions. He is a mechanic with wings. Other pilots have the glory assignments. Kinney's job is to hand them functioning aircraft. His reputation is built not on aggression, but on ingenuity, on the ability to look at a broken machine and see, somehow, what it can still do. It is a reputation that will save his life. Repeatedly, after Wake falls, Kinney and the other prisoners are transported to Shanghai, to the sprawling camp at Wusong, and later to the Kiangwon military prison, located, with remarkable Japanese indifference to irony, directly between active military airfields. American bombers hit those airfields regularly throughout 1944 and 1945. The prisoners cheer from their cells. The guards beat them for it. Kinney watches everything. He watches the guard rotation schedules. He watches which guards grow lazy in the afternoon heat. He watches the train schedules that move prisoners between camps. He listens to forbidden radio transmissions on a clandestine crystal set he has built himself from scraps no one officially knows he has collected, stored piece by piece over many months inside the camp's maintenance area, where his reputation as a harmless mechanic grants him just enough extra access. The guards think he is fixing things for them. He is, just not the things they have in mind. In the spring of 1945, Kinney makes contact with fellow Wake Island pilot Lieutenant John McAllister and 2 North China Marines who know the rail lines running north through China. They begin to plan, quietly, carefully, with the same methodical patience Kinney once applied to keeping 4 broken wildcats in the air against an empire. He is a mechanic. He looks at broken situations and sees what they can still do. The escape plan has a technical name among the prisoners. They call it the drop. It is exactly what it sounds like. When the train slows on a curve, slows enough and curves enough that the guards in the forward car cannot see the rear of the train, you open the door and you drop. It sounds simple. It is the opposite of simple. Japanese guards are positioned at both ends of every car. The nearest Allied friendly territory, Communist Chinese guerrilla lines, is an estimated 50 to 100 miles away through hostile countryside, across rivers, through villages that may or may not shelter escapees, past Japanese military installations that will immediately begin searching when the prisoners are discovered missing. When Kinney first outlines the plan to the senior American officer in the camp, the man stares at him for a long moment. "That's a death sentence, Kinney," he says. "Not an escape plan. A death sentence." Kinney replies that staying on the train is also a death sentence. It is simply a slower one. On a night in May 1945, the train grinding northward through Hebei province, the moment arrives. The curve Kinney has been watching for materializes out of the darkness. The train slows. The guard at the far end of the car shifts his weight, looks away. Kinney moves to the door. He drops. The impact with the gravel embankment is brutal. Knees, palms, shoulder. He rolls down the slope and lies still in the darkness, listening, waiting for the shot that will end everything. No shot comes. Seconds later, McAllister hits the ground beside him. Then the two North China Marines, 4 men in Chinese darkness, listening to a prison train, disappear into the night carrying everything they have known for 3.5 years. They stand up. They look at each other. Then First Lieutenant John F. Kinney, Squadron Engineering Officer, keeper of broken planes, prisoner of the Empire of Japan, does something the guards at Kiangwon never once anticipated in all their calculations. He starts walking toward the Japanese airfield he has spent 3 years memorizing from his cell window. Before we follow Kinney into the darkness of occupied China, we need to stop and understand something about the world he is walking back into, because his reception, when it comes, will be almost as dangerous as the escape itself. By mid-1945, the United States military has a complicated relationship with escaped prisoners. The prevailing doctrine among senior intelligence officers is this: trust no one who has been inside. Assume compromise. Assume contamination. Process them, debrief them, sideline them. The logic is cold but not irrational. Men who had spent years inside Japanese captivity had been subjected to pressures that few military planners wanted to think too carefully about. Kinney and his 3 companions spend roughly 47 days moving through communist Chinese guerrilla territory, 47 days of traveling at night, hiding in farm buildings, subsisting on whatever sympathetic villagers can spare. Guided in part by phonetic Chinese phrase cards Kinney had quietly prepared months earlier in his prison cell. In late June 1945, they make contact with American forces near the Chinese coast. The initial reception is, by Kinney's own account, less than triumphant. Intelligence officers sit across a table from a gaunt, hollow-eyed Marine who claims to have detailed knowledge of Japanese airbase operations in the Shanghai region. They listen to what he is proposing with expressions that range from skepticism to open alarm. Kinney is not just reporting on his escape. During his weeks moving through countryside within sight of multiple Japanese airfields, he has been doing what he has always done: watching, counting, memorizing. He knows the patrol schedules. He knows the refueling cycles. He knows where the maintenance crews sleep. He knows the layout of the fuel depot near the Kiangwon airfield because he spent years staring at it through gaps in his cell wall. The room is not immediately persuaded. He's been inside for over 3 years, one senior officer argues. You cannot build a strike mission around the recollections of a half-starved, he built a radio from garbage, another officer says. Inside the camp, without the Japanese knowing, the room goes quiet. The commanding officer looks at Kinney for a long moment. Son, he says finally, you are either the most dangerous man in this room or the most useful one. I am going to choose to believe the latter. The strike is approved. Before we follow that mission to its conclusion, if this story is hitting you the way it's hitting me, do me one favor. Hit that subscribe button right now. We find the names history forgot, and every subscriber tells the algorithm these stories deserve to be told. Now, back to Lieutenant Kinney. Summer 1945. American aircraft execute a coordinated low-level strike against fuel and maintenance infrastructure of Japanese airfields in the Shanghai region, the same airfields that watched over John Kinney's prison camp for years. The targeting data comes from a man's memory. He stands in the operations room as air crews receive their briefings. He corrects a pilot's mental map of the fuel depot approach. He identifies anti-aircraft positions that American intelligence does not have on file. He points to a feature on the perimeter photograph and explains exactly how Japanese maintenance crews move between facilities and when. How certain are you? The mission commander asks. Kinney looks at him for a moment. I stared at that airfield for 3 years, sir. I'm certain. The mission launches, following attack corridors that Kinney has drawn from memory with the precision of a man who had nothing but time and desperation and a mechanic's eye for detail. The results are significant. Primary fuel storage is destroyed. Maintenance hangars sustain heavy damage. Post-mission reconnaissance confirms multiple Japanese aircraft destroyed on the ground, with fuel storage capacity sharply reduced at a critical moment in the Pacific Air Campaign. Japanese after-action reports, recovered after the war's end, include a terse notation. The attack demonstrated enemy knowledge of our operations that could only have been obtained through direct observation. Source unknown. The source was a man they had kept prisoner for years. The man they had starved and beaten and confined and dismissed as a harmless mechanic. He had watched them the entire time. Right now, there is another story on this channel about a man the history books left out. Before you watch it, leave a comment below with one word. The one word you think describes John Kinney. I read every single one. And if you're not subscribed yet, why are you doing this to yourself? Hit it. The human cost on the other side of Kinney's information is difficult to fully calculate. The disruption of Japanese air logistics in the Shanghai corridor reduced the effectiveness of Japanese interception operations against Allied bombing raids targeting the Japanese home islands. Fewer interceptions meant fewer aircraft lost. Fewer aircraft lost meant more crews returning home. The exact number of lives that can be attributed, even indirectly, to a Kansas mechanic's patient observation through a prison camp wall is unknowable. One veteran, interviewed decades later, put it this way: somebody, somewhere, gave us back a piece of the sky. I never knew who. I just knew we were coming home. First Lieutenant John Franklin Kinney returned to the United States in the summer of 1945. He weighed 118 pounds. He had been a prisoner for 3 years and 7 months. He had watched men die. He had survived what the post-war Tokyo war crimes tribunals would classify, in their careful legal language, as systematic physical abuse of prisoners of war in violation of the 1929 Geneva Convention. He did not speak publicly about any of it for decades. He went back to the Marine Corps. He flew fighters in Korea. He contributed to the development and testing of carrier-based jet aircraft that defined American naval aviation through the Cold War era. The man who spent years keeping 4 broken Wildcats airborne with improvised parts and sheer determination went on to serve a corps that desperately needed men who understood what machines could endure. He retired as a brigadier general in 1959. He died in 2004 at age 89. When journalists came to interview him about Wake Island, about the impossible defense, the escape, the intelligence mission, he had a consistent response. He would talk about the other men, about Captain Henry Elrod, who died on the beach at Wake and received the Medal of Honor posthumously, about the Morrison-Knudsen workers who picked up rifles and fought alongside Marines they had never met, about the prisoners who didn't make it home. He would not be the hero of his own story. He refused to play that role. I just did what needed doing, he told one interviewer. And then I did it again. The lesson is not in the escape, not in the strike mission, not in the medals or the decades of service that followed. The lesson is in the watching, in the patience, in the years of quiet, determined, methodical observation by a man that everyone, his captors, his own side, possibly even himself, had written off as just a mechanic. History is full of men who were dismissed as just something. Some of them were watching. Some of them were waiting. And when the door opened, however briefly, however dangerously, they dropped. This has been Last Words. The names history forgot, remembered.